My name's Alex, and to say my family has been complicated is an understatement. We've always had this unspoken tension that nobody really talks about, but everyone feels. If you've ever been part of a family where things seem normal on the surface, but you just know something's off, you'll understand. We're not poor, but we're not rich either. My parents did all right for themselves, and I guess I followed in their footsteps. Got a decent job, living paycheck to paycheck, but managing to save a little here and there. But my cousin Danny, he's a different story. We grew up together, but we've never really gotten along. He's always had this sense of entitlement, like the world owes him something. As kids, it wasn't as obvious. But as we got older, it started to show more and more. His behavior towards me, especially, has always been, well, let's just say less than friendly. The way he looks at me sometimes, it's like he can't stand that I'm doing okay. I remember a few years ago, he was venting to me about how he was struggling while driving around in a brand new car his parents bought him. When I brought up that I was doing just fine despite not having anything handed to me, he got defensive. Fast forward to today, and I'm sitting at a family dinner, trying to hold it together. This gathering, like most others, is an excuse for my relatives to pretend everything's fine. We meet at my aunt's house, a little suburban home with a white picket fence, but everything's tense inside. My aunt, uncle, and cousins are there, as usual. The air is thick with forced conversation and awkward smiles. My cousin Danny, of course, is in the middle of it all, talking loud enough that everyone can hear him, but never actually saying anything worth listening to. He's always the loudest person in the room, whether he's bragging about some new gadget he bought or telling the same joke for the 100th time. I just sit there, nodding, trying to get through the night. As usual, no one talks about the real stuff. No one brings up the fact that Danny thinks he's entitled to everything just because we're family. And yet, there I am, the black sheep, trying to avoid confrontation while everyone else pretends everything is fine. Then the conversation shifts. My aunt asks me how work is going. I don't mind it. Work's fine. I tell her it's steady, and she nods like it's the most interesting thing anyone could have said. I know she's trying to make small talk, but it's clear that no one really cares about the details. That's when Danny starts. He looks over at me with that smug grin of his, and I know immediately that something's coming. So, Alex, he says, tapping his fork against his plate, how's the job? Making good money now? You always seemed like the type who'd do well for yourself. He says it like he's genuinely curious, but I know better. He's sizing me up, trying to figure out how much money I'm making. I don't answer right away. I know he's fishing. Oh, you know, I reply casually, just the usual. Working, saving up a bit here and there. Nothing too crazy. I keep it vague, watching him closely. I can tell he's not satisfied with that. He leans in, his voice dropping just enough for only the people closest to him to hear. Yeah, well, you've got that nice little chunk of change now, huh? Must be nice, he says, smirking. I don't know if he thinks I won't notice, but I catch the edge in his voice. The unspoken challenge. I've been thinking about getting a new car, he continues, his eyes glinting. But, you know, with the way things are, I'm kind of short on cash. You know how it is, right? He lets that hang in the air, waiting for me to bite. I don't take the bait. Instead, I just take a slow sip of my drink, pretending not to notice his not-so-subtle jabs. It's like he thinks I'm too dumb to see what he's doing. He's fishing for a compliment, trying to make me feel guilty that I'm doing better than him. Oh yeah, I ask, keeping my voice light. Well, you'll figure it out, I'm sure. That's when he presses. I mean, come on, we're family, right? Danny leans in even more, dropping his voice to a near whisper, though it's loud enough for everyone at the table to hear. You know, family helps each other out. I was thinking, maybe you could spot me a bit of cash. Just enough to get that car. I know it's not a huge ask. After all, you've got it pretty good now. He pauses, looking at me like I'm supposed to be grateful for his request. My mind starts racing. This isn't the first time he's asked for money, and it probably won't be the last. But this time, it feels different. He's not just asking for help. He's trying to manipulate me into feeling like I owe him. I feel my pulse pick up a bit, but I stay calm. I don't know, man. I say, my voice steady. I'm not really in the position to be handing out cash right now. I can see the flicker of annoyance in his eyes, but he hides it quickly, flashing a forced grin. Come on, Alex. It's just family helping out family, right? His voice is smooth now, trying to sound casual, but I can see through it. Everyone at the table is watching, but no one's saying anything. I can feel the pressure building. I'm about to snap, but then I remember something. Something that's been eating at me for months. Something that's going to make his whole act crumble. Slowly, I reach into my pocket and pull out my phone. I tap a few times, scrolling through a conversation. The tension at the table is almost unbearable as Danny watches me, unsure of what I'm doing. I look up at him, a small smile forming on my face. "You want to talk about family helping each other out, huh?" I say, my voice calm but sharp. I swipe the screen and show him the message. "Then explain this." The room goes dead silent. I can feel the eyes of everyone at the table burning into me, but I don't look away from Danny's face. I keep my finger on the screen of my phone, holding it just high enough for him to see. His smirk falters, and I watch his eyes shift from my face to the phone, his expression slowly changing from smug confidence to disbelief. For a brief moment, his lips twitch like he's trying to come up with something to say, but the words don't come. And that's when I drop the bomb. I pull up the screenshot. It's a text message from a few months ago, one I had almost forgotten about until recently. A message from one of my friends, someone who was clearly fed up with Danny's behavior. The message reads, "Danny's been talking trash about you again. Told everyone you're just a broke loser who's lucky to have a job." Beneath that, there's another message, a bit more cutting. He says you're not even worth asking for help. But hey, I guess he'll only talk to you when he needs something. I watch as Danny's face goes from pale to completely drained of color. I don't even need to say anything. The text says it all. My cousin stammers, trying to keep his cool, but it's clear that he's not sure what to do. He clears his throat, his voice shaky. "Hey Alex, that's not." He cuts himself off when he realizes there's nothing he can say that will make this go away. The room remains silent, except for the quiet hum of the air conditioning and the faint clink of silverware on plates. Everyone is looking between us, and I can see the uncertainty in their eyes. No one has said a word yet. My aunt, who's usually the peacemaker in the family, glances at Danny, then at me, her face tight with confusion. It's obvious she has no idea what's going on, and I can see her trying to piece together the situation in her head. Danny, still trying to save face, forces out a weak laugh. "Look, it's not what it looks like, okay? But he doesn't finish. His voice falters as he looks at the phone screen again, like he's finally starting to process how badly he's been caught. He shifts uncomfortably in his seat, his eyes flicking around the table. His expression is a mix of embarrassment and frustration, but I'm not letting him off the hook. "That's funny," I say, not bothering to hide the sarcasm in my voice. "I didn't realize family talked behind each other's backs like that. But hey, maybe I'm just overreacting, right?" I let the silence stretch for a few more seconds, watching Danny squirm under the weight of his own lies. I don't even have to look at anyone else. I know that they're all thinking the same thing. The worst part? My aunt is starting to piece it together. She looks between us and then at Danny, her face slowly changing from confusion to concern. "Danny, what is this?" she asks softly. "What's going on?" I don't answer for him. I just let the silence hang in the air, letting the truth settle. Danny opens his mouth again, trying to speak, but no words come out. He's running out of excuses, and everyone at the table is starting to see him for what he really is. The smug, entitled attitude he's carried for years is starting to crack, and for the first time, I'm not the one in the hot seat. But then, just as I think I've got the upper hand, my uncle speaks up. All right, let's just calm down. Everyone's a little on edge, okay," he says, trying to defuse the situation. But I can see it in his eyes. He doesn't really believe Danny, not anymore. There's something in the way he glances at me now, like he's trying to figure out whether this is a family problem or if it's deeper than that. Danny, sensing the shift, looks to my uncle for backup. "Dad, this is ridiculous," he mutters. "Alex is just trying to make me look bad in front of everyone. I was just asking for some help, like any family would. This is blown way out of proportion." He's scrambling now, trying to manipulate the situation, but it's too late. The cracks are starting to show. I stand up, placing my phone face down on the table. "I'm done with this conversation. I'm not making you look bad, Danny," I say coldly. "You're doing that all on your own." I turn to my aunt and uncle, my voice steady. "You want to know what kind of family helps each other out? A family that doesn't talk behind each other's backs, a family that doesn't manipulate each other when they're in need. That's the kind of family I thought we were." Danny's face is burning red now, and I'm sure he's regretting ever trying to pull this stunt. I can see it in his eyes, that moment when he realized I wasn't going to back down, when he realized this time he wasn't going to get away with it. He shifts uneasily in his chair, unable to look anyone in the eye. And just before the tension reaches its peak, I make my move. You want money so badly? I say, my voice cutting through the silence. Then explain this. I reach for my phone again, ready to show him exactly what I've been holding back. But I'm not showing him just another screenshot. This time, I'm pulling up something else, something that'll be the final nail in his coffin. I slide my phone across the table, face up, the screen glaring in the dim light of the dining room. The weight of the moment is palpable, and I can feel the tension growing thicker with every second. Everyone is holding their breath, waiting for the next move, even Danny, who looks like he's seen a ghost. I let the phone rest on the table, not saying a word. The text message on the screen is loud and clear. It's a message Danny had sent to one of his friends a week ago. Can you believe Alex actually thinks he's better than me? This guy gets a little bit of money and acts like he's some big shot. I wouldn't trust him with $1, let alone give him any help. I'll just keep playing the victim card. Family will always come through when you need it. The words hang in the air like a slap. Everyone stares at it, the silence suffocating. Even my uncle, who's usually the peacekeeper, sits back in his chair, eyes wide, not sure how to process this. My aunt's face is a mix of disbelief and shock, her hand trembling slightly as she reaches for her wine glass. Danny's face turns ghostly pale, his hand shaking as he reaches out to grab the phone, but I pull it away just in time. You want to keep pretending you're the victim, Danny? I ask, my voice steady, but there's a coldness to it now that cuts through the room. You want to keep playing the family card? Or should we talk about how you've been trash-talking me behind my back, calling me a loser to your friends while trying to suck up to everyone else when you need something? The blood drains from his face. His lips part, but no words come out. His entire posture is deflated, his usual arrogance gone, replaced by something I haven't seen in years, vulnerability. And I can tell by the way his eyes dart around the table that he knows he's lost this round. The room is dead silent now, save for the soft clinking of my aunt's glass as she sets it back down with a shaky hand. My uncle looks at Danny, then back at me, then back at Danny. There's no sign of the usual calm authority he has, just a weary look, like he's finally realized that his son has been the one causing the mess all along. Danny clears his throat, trying to recover some semblance of pride. This is all a misunderstanding, he says, his voice quieter than before. But even I can hear the desperation in it now, the cracks in his defense. No, Danny, I reply firmly, locking eyes with him. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is you trying to manipulate everyone around you. You've been playing the poor me act for so long, making everyone think you've got it hard, that you deserve help, but you've been using everyone, including me. Danny's mouth opens and closes, but the words don't come. His mind is spinning, searching for some way out of this mess, but there's nothing. His shoulders sag as the weight of his own actions finally hits him. The arrogance, the manipulation, the lying, it all catches up to him in this one moment. But I'm not done yet. I turn to my aunt and uncle, my tone softening just enough to show them that this is more than just about Danny's petty actions. I didn't want to have to do this in front of everyone, I say, my voice calm but firm, but you deserve to know what's been going on behind the scenes. Danny's been trying to manipulate everyone in this family for his own gain, and now he thinks he can pressure me into giving him money just because he's family. Danny's eyes widen, and I can see him panic. I didn't mean it like that. I wasn't trying to manipulate anyone. I stop, Danny, I interrupt, my voice louder now, no longer allowing him to weasel his way out. This is exactly what you do. You gaslight everyone around you into believing you're the one who's been wronged, and when that doesn't work, you use the family card to make us feel guilty. I let that sink in for a moment, letting the full weight of my words land. The silence stretches on, thick and heavy, until finally, my uncle speaks up, his voice tight with disappointment. This isn't the first time you've acted like this, is it? He asks, his eyes narrowing at Danny. Danny's jaw clenches, and he opens his mouth to protest, but my uncle holds up a hand, silencing him. You've been doing this for a while now, haven't you? Using people, playing the victim, and taking advantage of their generosity whenever it suits you. Danny doesn't respond. He can't. My uncle's words hang in the air, the final nail in the coffin of Danny's carefully constructed facade. I stand there for a moment, letting the gravity of the situation settle. It's finally over. Danny's no longer the golden child who can do no wrong. I can see the cracks in his armor, and they're only getting bigger. But before he can respond, my aunt looks at me, her eyes softening. Alex, I didn't know any of this. I'm so sorry. We should have noticed sooner. Her voice trembles, and it's clear she's struggling to reconcile the son she's known with the person standing in front of us now. Danny shoots her a desperate look, but she doesn't meet his gaze. She's seen enough. I can feel the eyes of everyone on me now, and for a moment, I wonder if I've gone too far. But then I realize, no, this needed to happen. It was long overdue. Danny's not going to get away with this, not anymore. And if that means making him face the consequences of his actions in front of everyone, then so be it. The silence lingers, but now, it's not uncomfortable. It's expectant. The tension in the room is palpable, and I know this moment is one Danny will never forget. But there's one more thing I need to say, one last thing that'll make sure he understands the full weight of his actions. Just remember, Danny, I say, my voice low, family doesn't help each other by taking advantage of one another. It's about respect, honesty, and not pretending to be someone you're not when you need something. I wait for him to respond, but there's nothing left to say. The ball is in his court now, and I've made sure everyone here knows exactly who he is. But then my aunt speaks up again, her voice softer now, more apologetic. We're going to need to talk about this later, Danny. All of us. The words are final, and I know that whatever happens next, nothing will be the same. But for now, I let the weight of the silence linger. Danny finally pushes his chair back, standing up abruptly. His face is flushed, eyes wide with a mix of frustration and humiliation. He glares at me one last time, but the fire he once had is gone. It's replaced by something more painful, realization. He knows he's lost, and there's nothing he can do to fix it now. Without saying another word, he storms out of the room, slamming the door behind him. The house seems to exhale a collective breath, as if the tension in the air has been lifted. My aunt and uncle sit there, stunned into silence, processing everything that just unfolded. Alex, my uncle begins, his voice still thick with disbelief. I had no idea. I should have been paying more attention. You didn't deserve any of this. I nod, my chest tightening just a little. I don't expect anyone to know everything, Uncle Mark. But it wasn't just about the money. It was the way he's been treating me, manipulating everyone around him, thinking he could get away with it just because we're family. It had to stop. My aunt sighs, her hands trembling as she wipes her eyes. I'm so sorry, Alex. I didn't see it before. I'll make sure we talk about this, really talk about it, when Danny calms down. This family can't keep going on like this. I nod again, my gaze lingering on the door where Danny had exited. In that moment, I realize this won't be the last time this conversation comes up. But for the first time in a long while, I feel a sense of relief. It was a brutal confrontation, but it was necessary. The dinner was over after that. No one really had much to say, and I could tell my aunt and uncle needed some time to process what had just happened. I left shortly after, saying my goodbyes and heading home with a mix of emotions swirling inside me. I was angry at Danny for everything he'd done, but I also felt a strange sense of closure. In the days that followed, I didn't hear from Danny. I knew it was probably best that way. He needed time to process the fallout from his own actions. But what really hit me was how the rest of the family started to treat me. It wasn't just my aunt and uncle who were grateful for what I did. It was my cousins, my other relatives. They reached out with messages of support, thanking me for standing up to him. It felt good to know I wasn't alone in this. That I had the support of the family who'd seen what Danny had been doing behind the scenes. As for Danny, he eventually reached out, but it wasn't to apologize. He wanted something. Of course, it wasn't money. Instead, he wanted to manipulate the situation again, trying to convince me I was the one who had gone too far. He said the family would never be the same after what I did. But honestly, I didn't care. I didn't need to fix everything for him. What I did wasn't about him. It was about finally standing up for myself and showing that I wouldn't let him walk all over me anymore. Things aren't perfect. I haven't heard from him much since that last attempt, and I'm fine with that. It's not easy dealing with someone like Danny, but I've made it clear that I won't be a doormat. I'm just relieved that, for the first time in a long while, there's a sense of peace in my family. And that's the way it stands now. My question to all of you, what would you have done in my situation? Did I go too far? Or was this something that needed to happen? Let me know your thoughts, because honestly, I'm still processing everything too. My name is Rachel, and I've always been the odd one out in my family. Not because I did anything wrong, but because, somehow, my success made me the enemy. I grew up in a middle-class home where money was tight, but I worked my ass off to build a life for myself. I got a scholarship to a great college, landed a high-paying job in finance, and now, at 32, I'm doing better than I ever thought possible. I'm not a millionaire, but I'm comfortable. I own my home outright, travel when I want. And, up until recently, I sent money to my family every month just to help out. I never expected gratitude, but I also never expected them to betray me like this. I should have seen the signs years ago. My mom always favored my brother, Mark, the golden child who could do no wrong. He bounced from job to job, never taking responsibility for anything, but somehow, he was always trying his best while I was too serious about work or thinking I'm better than everyone. My sister, Lisa, was no better. She was the queen of passive-aggressive comments, always making sure to remind me that money doesn't buy happiness, while conveniently forgetting that she had no problem cashing the checks I sent her when she was behind on rent. And then there was my dad, who just went along with whatever my mom said, never standing up for me, never calling out the blatant favoritism. But despite it all, I still tried. Every holiday, I came home with gifts. Every family dinner, I paid the bill. Every time one of them needed help, I was there. I thought, foolishly, that maybe if I kept giving, they'd finally accept me. Instead, they decided to show me exactly where I stood. It started at a holiday party, just a casual get-together at my parents' house. We were all sitting around the dining room table, plates filled with my mom's signature overcooked turkey, when I smiled and said, "I can't wait for the reunion tomorrow. It'll be nice to see everyone again." For a second, there was silence. Then Mark let out a short chuckle. "What? The reunion was yesterday." I blinked. "What?" Lisa smirked, sipping her wine like this was the most entertaining thing she'd seen all night. "Yeah, it was yesterday. Didn't Mom tell you?" I turned to my mother, heart pounding. "You told me it was on the 23rd. She shrugged, not even looking guilty. "Oops. Must have gotten the dates mixed up." Mixed up? Mixed up? I wasn't some distant cousin they forgot to call. I was their daughter, their sister. And they had a whole family reunion without me? My aunt, who had been scrolling through her phone, held it up, showing me a picture. Everyone was there. My cousins, my uncles, my nieces and nephews. Mark, Lisa, my parents, smiling, laughing, arms around each other. And I hadn't even gotten a text. Mark grinned, shaking his head. "Damn, that's awkward. Guess we forgot to mention it." Lisa giggled. "Oops, my bad. LOL." Something inside me went ice cold. I put down my fork, stood up, and walked away from the table without another word. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just walked away. Because in that moment, I knew this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't forgetfulness. They had done this on purpose, and they were going to regret it. I walked out of the dining room, my footsteps steady, my breathing controlled. I didn't slam the door behind me. I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me lose my temper. Instead, I grabbed my coat from the hallway and stepped outside into the cold winter air, letting it bite at my skin as I processed what had just happened. They had planned this. They had all known. My mother, my father, my brother, my sister, every single one of them had looked me in the eye, smiled at me, and let me sit there like an idiot while they laughed about forgetting to tell me. I pulled my phone from my pocket and scrolled through my messages. Nothing. No missed calls, no texts, not even a half-assed, "wish you were here" message. I wasn't even an afterthought. A dull ache settled in my chest, but I forced myself to push it down. I had spent years pretending their favoritism didn't bother me, that their little digs and cold shoulders didn't sting. But this was different. This was deliberate. This was them making a statement. I stared out at the quiet street, watching as snowflakes drifted down under the glow of the streetlights. I should have just gotten in my car and left, driven back to my house, and cut them out of my life right then and there. But I didn't, because I wanted to see how far they would take this. After a few minutes, I forced myself to take a deep breath and turn back toward the house. The laughter inside continued as if nothing had happened. I pushed open the door and stepped back inside, hanging my coat up as if I had only stepped out for a breath of fresh air. My fingers were cold, but I didn't rub my hands together. I wanted the chill to settle into my bones, to remind me of what they had done. When I walked back into the dining room, my family barely acknowledged my return. My mother was slicing into a piece of pie, my father was refilling his glass of wine, and Lisa and Mark were whispering to each other, grinning. I pulled my chair back out and sat down. Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Thought you left." I met her gaze, my face unreadable. "Why would I leave? It's just a silly mistake, right?" She gave me a slow, knowing smile. "Of course, just a little mix-up." Mark snickered. "You're taking this way too seriously. It's not like we did it on purpose." I leaned back in my chair. You all had an entire family reunion. Everyone was there. You had to coordinate food, drinks, decorations. Someone had to organize a venue, set a date, send out invitations. But not one of you remembered to text me. I tilted my head slightly. You expect me to believe that? My mother sighed dramatically, as if I were the one being difficult. Rachel, don't be like this. It's the holidays. Let's not ruin the mood over a simple mistake. A simple mistake. I glanced around the table, watching the way they all avoided my eyes, waiting for me to just drop it and move on like I always did. I could feel the expectation in the air. This was the part where I was supposed to sigh, brush it off, and pretend I wasn't hurt. That's what I had always done. Not this time. I picked up my fork, twirling it idly between my fingers. You know, I said, keeping my tone light, I've been thinking a lot about the monthly money I send you all. That got their attention. Lisa sat up a little straighter. My mother's eyes flickered with something close to panic. My father, who had been silent up until now, finally looked up from his plate. What about it? Mark asked, the suspicion in his voice unmistakable. I set my fork down gently. I just think it's interesting. I help pay Lisa's rent when she falls behind. I cover Mom and Dad's medical bills. I even send Mark money when he needs a little extra for whatever it is he does these days. I let the words settle before adding. And yet, somehow, I wasn't important enough to be invited to the family reunion. Silence. Lisa forced out a laugh, but it was nervous now. Oh, come on. You're not actually mad about this, are you? I didn't answer. Mark, on the other hand, scoffed. Look, you're acting crazy. It was just a mix-up, Rachel. Nobody's out to get you. And besides, he added, waving his fork in the air, you're doing fine. It's not like you need the reunion. You've got your fancy job, your nice house, your perfect little life. Oh, there it was. The jealousy, the bitterness, the resentment that had been bubbling under the surface for years, disguised as jokes, hidden behind backhanded compliments. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You're right, Mark. I do have a great life. Lisa gave me a sharp look. Rachel, don't be petty. I let out a soft hum of amusement. Petty? You mean like throwing an entire family reunion and conveniently forgetting to invite me? No one spoke. Then, Mark rolled his eyes. Oh my God, you are so dramatic. You always have to act like a victim, don't you? He shoved another bite of food into his mouth, shaking his head. Whatever. You'll get over it. Just like you always do. I watched him chew, a smirk playing on his lips like he had already won. Like they had all won. And that's when he said it. Besides, he added, wiping his mouth with a napkin, I already ordered those new Jordans with the money you send me every month. You wouldn't actually cut us off over something this stupid, right? The room went deadly quiet. My mother's eyes widened, her fork hovering midair. Lisa stiffened. My father cleared his throat awkwardly, pretending to focus on his plate. Mark, oblivious, just grinned. I mean, come on. You wouldn't do that to your family. And just like that, the decision was made. I set my napkin down, folded my hands neatly in my lap, and smiled. Wouldn't I? Mark's grin faltered. He blinked at me, waiting for me to laugh it off, to wave my hand and tell him I was just joking. But I wasn't joking. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating, as realization settled over the table. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it. Lisa shifted in her seat, her fingers tightening around her fork. Even my father, usually content to stay out of these things, finally looked up and met my gaze with an expression I couldn't quite read. Mark, on the other hand, scoffed. Oh, come on, he said, his voice dripping with forced confidence. You're not actually serious. I tilted my head slightly, watching him squirm. You think I'd keep sending you money, I said slowly, after you all pulled this? Lisa forced out a short, nervous laugh. Rachel, you're being ridiculous. You know Mark didn't mean it like that. Oh. I leaned forward slightly, resting my elbows on the table. Then how did he mean it? Mark let out an exasperated sigh and tossed his napkin onto the table. Jesus, you are so sensitive. You're acting like we murdered your dog or something. We just forgot, okay? You're making a huge deal out of nothing. I nodded thoughtfully. Right. Just a little mistake. My mother jumped in then, her voice saccharine sweet. Rachel, honey, we love you. You know that. We're family. She reached across the table, placing her hand over mine. Let's not let a simple misunderstanding ruin that. I stared at her hand, then at her face. The carefully constructed mask of motherly concern. The same mask she had worn every time she had dismissed my feelings, every time she had brushed off their favoritism like I was the one imagining things. And I realized something right then and there. They weren't sorry. Not for what they had done. Not for how they had treated me. They were sorry because I was finally standing up for myself. I pulled my hand away. You know, I mused, I wonder how different this conversation would be if I didn't send you all money every month. My father cleared his throat. Rachel, I held up a hand. No, really. Would any of you even be trying to smooth this over if I weren't your personal bank account? No one answered. Lisa had the audacity to look offended. That's not fair. We care about you. I let out a soft laugh. You care about what I can do for you. Mark rolled his eyes. Oh my God, here we go again. You always have to play the victim. Maybe we didn't invite you because we didn't want to deal with this exact kind of drama. I arched an eyebrow. Then you won't have to deal with it anymore. The tension in the air shifted. My mother's expression flickered with unease. My father looked down at his plate, pretending to be uninterested, but I saw his fingers tighten around his fork. Lisa's mouth pressed into a thin line. And Mark? Mark just laughed. Oh, please. You're not going to cut us off. You're too nice for that. I smiled. I guess you'll find out. Mark's face fell. I stood up, smoothing my dress, and grabbed my purse from the back of my chair. The whole table watched me like I was about to detonate a bomb. Rachel, my mother said, her voice edging toward panic now, don't be rash. We're family. You don't just turn your back on family. I turned to look at her, my expression unreadable. You all turned your backs on me a long time ago. With that, I walked toward the door. Wait, Lisa blurted out, scrambling to her feet. You're not actually serious, right? You're not really cutting us off. I opened the front door. The cold air rushed in, cutting through the warm, suffocating air of the house. I looked over my shoulder, my voice calm, almost casual. Enjoy the shoes, Mark. And then I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. I barely made it to my car before my phone started buzzing. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Then Lisa. Ignored. Then surprise, Mark. I smirked to myself, shaking my head as I climbed into the driver's seat. That didn't take long. I wasn't even out of the driveway when the first text came in. Okay, very funny. You made your point. Can you send the money now? I rolled my eyes and put my phone on silent. The drive home was peaceful. For the first time in years, I felt a strange sense of freedom. I didn't have to play the role of the nice one anymore, the one who always forgave, always gave, always put up with their nonsense. I was done. But they were just getting started. By the time I got home, my phone had exploded with messages. Lisa had sent, Rachel, don't be so dramatic. Family is family. Mom said, you don't mean this. We raised you better than this. Dad, uncharacteristically brief, just sent, call your mother. And then there was Mark, who had sent far too many messages for someone who supposedly didn't care. At first, it was the usual Mark nonsense, mocking, condescending, assuming I'd cave like always. You're really cutting us off over this? Unreal. Then another, what are you gonna do? Spend all your money on candles and fancy pillows. Come on. Then a final jab, fine, be petty. Whatever. Then the shift happened. Hey, okay, listen, I kind of need that money. Like, soon. I smirked. Here we go. I ordered some stuff expecting you to send it this month. Oh, now he was admitting it. It's not just the shoes. I may have also gotten a new TV. I raised an eyebrow. And a PS5. And a laptop. But I had it all planned out. Your transfer was supposed to come in today. Ratch, come on. I took a slow sip of my tea, scrolling further. You're seriously not answering? This isn't funny. They're going to charge my card tomorrow. Rachel, I don't have the money to cover it. Do you want me to go into debt? I nearly choked on my tea. Oh, this was gold. Mark wasn't just inconvenienced. He was in real trouble. For years, he had lived with this smug confidence, knowing I'd always come through, always help. He had spent money he didn't have because he assumed I would keep paying. And now? He was desperate. A notification popped up, incoming call from Mark. I let it ring. Then another. And another. Then a message, short and to the point. Pick up the phone. I sat back, watching my screen, a slow grin forming on my face. For the first time ever, I was the one in control. They thought I'd just roll over. That I'd let them gaslight me into believing it was my fault, that I was being unreasonable. But they forgot one very important thing. I was done being the family's ATM. And Mark? Mark was about to learn exactly what that meant. I put my phone down and stretched out on the couch, feeling more relaxed than I had in years. Let them squirm. Let them panic. I wasn't their safety net anymore, and they were about to feel what that really meant. Mark had always been reckless with money, but this was something else. He had gone ahead and racked up a bunch of charges on his credit card, fully expecting me to cover them like I always had. And now that I wasn't playing along, he was spiraling. I scrolled through his messages again, shaking my head. A new TV, a PS5, a laptop, and that was on top of the expensive shoes he'd already mentioned earlier. How much had he actually spent? Knowing Mark, he'd probably gone for the top-of-the-line versions of everything, assuming it didn't matter because I was footing the bill. But now the reality was hitting him hard. I put my phone on silent and turned on the TV, ready to enjoy my evening. But before I could even pick something to watch, my phone lit up again. Another call from Mark. Then another. And another. He was relentless. I ignored them all. But then, after a few minutes, my phone buzzed with a message from Mom. Rachel, call your brother. Now. I scoffed. Oh, now she cared. Funny how that worked. Then another one. This is serious. He's in trouble. You need to help him. I took my time finishing my drink before even considering a response. Then, a message from Lisa. Okay, look, I get that you're mad, but you've made your point. Can you just send the money now? He's freaking out. I grinned. They were starting to crack. Then Mark again. Rachel, if you don't send the money tonight, I'll be in trouble. Do you get that? I can't pay for this. Oh, I got it, all right. I let another 15 minutes pass. The messages kept coming. Then, finally, one that really made me laugh. Rachel, please. There it was. The desperation. I let that one sit unanswered for another 10 minutes before finally picking up the phone and calling Mark. He picked up on the first ring. Finally. Rachel, what the hell? You've been ignoring me all night. I leaned back on the couch. Oh, I saw your messages. I was just busy. Busy? Busy doing what? Relaxing. He made a sound of pure frustration. Rachel, you don't get it. I know, Mark, you don't get it. My voice was calm, but firm. You assumed I'd keep paying for you. You didn't even ask. You just went ahead and spent money you didn't have because you thought I'd be there to bail you out. Again, there was silence on the other end. Then he scoffed. Oh, come on. You're really this mad over some dumb reunion? It was a mistake. We forgot to tell you, big deal. But now you're punishing me for it? That's insane. I shook my head. No, Mark. This isn't about the reunion. It's about the fact that I'm done. Done being treated like a walking wallet. Done being lied to. Done being used. His voice rose. Used. Oh my God, Rachel, you're so dramatic. You're acting like we're stealing from you. We're family. You have money. It's not like it's a big deal to you. There it was. The entitlement. The expectation. The sheer audacity of it. I let out a short laugh. Wow, you really don't see it, do you? See what? That you're being completely unreasonable? No, that I don't owe you anything. I was helping because I wanted to. But now? I don't want it anymore. You can't be serious, he breathed. Rachel, you can't do this. I already spent the money. I can't just return everything. Not my problem, I said simply. You don't get it, he snapped. They're going to charge my card at midnight. If I don't have the money, my account is going to overdraft. You're just going to let that happen. I was quiet for a moment, letting his panic settle in. Then I spoke, my voice calm. Yes, I am. He let out a strangled laugh, like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Rachel, come on. Just this one last time. Just send it, and I swear, I'll never ask again. I sighed. That's what you said last time. And the time before that. And the time before that. This is different. No, it's not. It's exactly the same. You made a reckless decision, thinking I'd clean up your mess. But I'm not doing that anymore. Rachel, his voice cracked slightly. Please. I almost felt a twinge of sympathy. Almost. But then I remembered every time I'd been dismissed, every time they'd laughed at me, every time they treated me like an outsider in my own family. I stood firm. You'll figure it out, I said. Good luck. Then I hung up. Within seconds, my phone started buzzing again. I ignored it. Then a message from Lisa. What did you just say to him? He's freaking out. I didn't answer. Then Mom. Rachel, you are being cruel. He's your brother. You have to help him. No, I didn't. And finally, another message from Mark. You're gonna regret this. I smiled, turned off my phone, and went to bed. Let him panic. Let them all panic. Because for once, I wasn't the one losing sleep over it. The next morning, I woke up to a ridiculous amount of missed calls and messages. Mark, Lisa, Mom, one after another, all trying to get me to cave. But I had already made my decision. I wasn't backing down. I took my time getting out of bed, made myself a nice breakfast, and scrolled through my messages while sipping my coffee. Most of them were the same: guilt-tripping, whining, and demands. But then, I saw something new. Rachel, I swear to God, if you don't send the money, I'll come to your house myself. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, a threat now? Then another message. This one from Mom. Mark is on his way over. Please just talk to him. I set my cup down and sighed. So that was how they wanted to play it. Fine, let's play. About an hour later, just as I was finishing up some work, my doorbell rang. I already knew who it was. I opened the door to find Mark standing there, looking like an absolute mess. His hair was disheveled, his shirt was wrinkled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He had clearly not slept. Rachel, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. We need to talk. I crossed my arms and leaned against the doorframe. Talk about what? I thought I made myself pretty clear last night. His jaw tightened. Look, I messed up, okay? But I need you to help me out this one time. One time, I tilted my head. You mean just like last time? And the time before that? His hands clenched into fists. Come on, you have the money. It wouldn't even hurt you. I let out a short laugh. That's the problem, Mark. You think my money is your safety net, that it's just something you're entitled to. But it's not. He let out a frustrated sigh, running a hand through his hair. Rachel, I don't have time for this. The charges are hitting my account today. I stared at him. Mark, I just want you to take responsibility for once in your life. His face twisted into something ugly. This is because of the reunion, isn't it? You're being petty over a stupid party. I laughed again. Oh, trust me, Mark. This is about a lot more than just that. He was breathing heavily now, like he was barely holding himself together. So you're really not going to help me? Nope. His hands clenched at his sides, his nostrils flaring. Then, as if something in him snapped, he hissed, You're just a selfish brat. You think you're better than us because you have money? Newsflash, Rachel, you're not. You'll always just be the pathetic little sister who had to buy her way into respect. And when you finally lose all that money, don't come crawling back to us, because we won't care. I didn't even flinch. I just smiled. Good to know, Mark. Now get off my property. He stood there, glaring at me, waiting for me to cave. But I didn't. After a few tense seconds, he let out a bitter laugh and turned to leave. Fine. Whatever. Don't help me. But don't expect this to be over. I watched as he stormed off, muttering under his breath. As he got into his car, my phone buzzed again. A message from Mom. Rachel, what did you do? Mark is furious. I shook my head and shut the door, sending a final message to my family. I'm done. Don't ever ask me for money again. It felt final. I hit send, turned off my phone, and went on with my day. For the first time in a long while, I felt at peace. The following days were quieter. My family didn't reach out anymore, and for a while, it was like they just accepted that I wasn't coming back to the role they'd always put me in, their ATM, their backup plan, their easy way out. I didn't hear from Mark or Lisa. It was a relief, but also a bit strange. A week passed, and then another. I didn't even think about them that much. I focused on my work, my life, and doing things for myself. Then, one night, I got a message from Mark. I messed up. I don't know what to do. Please, Rachel, help me. I stared at it for a moment, feeling no rush to reply. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't frustrated. I had simply moved on. I deleted the message without responding. The next day, I went about my routine, completely unbothered. And in that moment, I realized that for the first time in my life, I was living for myself. No guilt, no expectations, just me. And that was exactly how I wanted it to stay. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. It was Christmas dinner. The snow was falling gently outside, the kind of snow that makes everything look peaceful, like a Hallmark movie or something. The kind of snow that should make you feel warm and cozy inside, with the smell of roast turkey and pumpkin pie filling the air. Instead, as I sat there at the family dinner table, the warmth in the room felt suffocating. I'm Jason, 29, and for the past few years, I've been the black sheep of the family. Sure, that wasn't exactly unusual. Siblings often find their roles, right? But lately, it had gotten worse. I don't know when it all started to change, But over the last few months, it felt like everything I did just pissed off my family. No matter how hard I tried to make things work, it seemed like my family was finding new ways to make me feel like I was unwanted, like I didn't belong. It's not like I was perfect or anything, but damn, I didn't expect to be treated like this. It was my brother, Kyle, who started it all. He's the golden child, always the one who did everything right, never messed up, always had a smile on his face, and for some reason, my parents ate it all up. He could do no wrong. Kyle was the kind of guy who could walk into a room and everyone would turn to him like he was the Messiah, and I just wasn't. Over the years, I've tried to keep things civil with him, but the distance between us grew. He would make snide comments, sometimes subtle, sometimes not so much. Every time, it stung. This Christmas dinner was supposed to be different. I told myself that I wouldn't let anything get to me. It's Christmas, right? But as soon as I walked in, I could tell things weren't going to be normal. Mom was there in the kitchen, cooking like she always does, but she didn't even look up when I said hi. Dad was in his usual chair, reading the paper, giving me that polite nod, but nothing more. It was like they were all pretending that I wasn't really part of the family. And Kyle? Oh, he had that smirk. The one that always made me angry. It was after dinner, when we were all sitting around the table with dessert, that it happened. It started with some casual banter, nothing too serious, just the usual holiday chatter. I figured I could relax for once. But then Kyle leaned back in his chair, and with that damn smug grin of his, he looked at me. "Hey, Jason," he said, his voice dripping with false sweetness. "We had a vote." I raised an eyebrow. "A vote? What are you talking about? You weren't here last week, so we had a family vote about you," he said, and I immediately felt a knot twist in my stomach. "What vote?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Kyle looked around the table like he was the leader of the pack, like everyone was hanging on his every word. "We voted, and you're no longer part of the family," he said, his voice a mix of amusement and cruelty. Everyone around the table laughed. My parents chuckled along with it, even though their eyes avoided mine. It felt like a sick joke, but it was real. It was happening right in front of me. My heart sank. For a moment, I couldn't process what was going on. It was like the room had shrunk down, and all the voices blurred together. The laughter was the worst part. It felt like they were all in on it, and I was the only one who didn't get the punchline. I wanted to shout, to yell at them to stop, but something inside me froze. Instead, I just nodded. I nodded because, what else was there to do? "Well, that's nice," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The tension in the room grew. Kyle's grin didn't fade. "You should have been here for the vote," Kyle continued. "It was unanimous, you know? Everyone agreed. You're just not one of us anymore." He looked over at Mom and Dad for approval, and they both gave him a nod, like they were proud of him. I felt my chest tighten. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just stood up from the table. "Jason," my mom said, her voice a little shaky, like she wasn't quite sure if this was a joke or not. I didn't answer. I just walked away from the table, past the faces of people I had once called family. I could feel their eyes on my back, but I didn't turn around. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my coat and pulled it on. I heard Kyle call after me, but I didn't stop. I didn't care anymore. As I reached the door, I heard my dad's voice. "Jason," he said, his tone low, "you're not really going to leave, are you?" I paused for a moment, my fingers gripping the doorknob. I looked over my shoulder. "You voted, didn't you?" I said, my voice steady now, despite the storm that raged inside me. "Well, I'm just honoring the vote." I opened the door and stepped outside into the cold, the winter air cutting through me like a knife. The door slammed shut behind me, and for a second, I stood there in the snow, not sure what to do. My breath was visible in the cold, and everything felt so surreal. How had it come to this? How had they all turned against me like this? I walked away from the house, from the laughter, from the pain. I didn't look back. But then something hit me. I'd been kicked out, sure. But I wasn't going to let this go. I wasn't going to just let them treat me like I didn't matter, like I was some disposable thing that could just be voted out. No, I wasn't going to take that. I would make them realize what they had done. I spent the next few days in a haze, walking through the motions of life without really feeling it. My phone buzzed with messages, mostly from my parents, and a few from friends who somehow found out about the whole situation, but I ignored them. They could try to apologize or explain, but nothing would change. I didn't want to deal with any of it right away, but the anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface. It wasn't just the insult of being kicked out of the family that hurt. It was the years of being ignored, belittled, and disregarded. Years of being the one who was left out of family decisions, who was treated like a problem rather than a person. But now, they crossed a line. I spent a few days with my close friend, Tyler, who had always been there for me. He let me vent, but he also gave me a reality check. Look, man, you can't just let them get away with this, he said one evening while we were sitting on his couch, the TV muted. But you have to do it the right way. You can't just walk in and start yelling, or you'll be giving them exactly what they want. It stung to hear the truth, but I knew Tyler was right. If I just lashed out at them, it would give them the satisfaction of seeing me lose my cool. They already saw me as the problem, the angry one. If I wanted to show them how serious I was, I had to play it smart. Over the next few weeks, I started formulating a plan. I wasn't going to burn bridges, at least not yet, but I would make them realize how much I'd been undervalued. The first thing I did was stop reaching out. No more calls, no more messages. I didn't even bother to answer when they called. I wanted them to feel the absence. I wanted them to experience what it felt like to be ignored, to be treated like I was nothing. The next step was to take control of what I had left. I started putting together a small but effective network of people who actually cared about me. Tyler was on the front lines, of course, but there were a few other close friends, and even some distant relatives who'd always been more supportive. I gathered them all together for a few dinners, game nights, and outings, things that were a stark contrast to the cold, isolated feeling I had grown accustomed to at my family's gatherings. I posted about it, too. Nothing flashy, just casual photos of me laughing with friends, enjoying life without the constant tension of my family's judgment. It wasn't a statement, at least not to anyone who didn't know the context, but to my family? To them, it was a message. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. My parents invited me to a family meeting. The text came on a random Wednesday afternoon, and my heart skipped when I read it. I didn't even think twice before responding with a simple, "I'm not interested." They tried again, this time calling me, but I just let it ring out. By then, I had a plan in mind. A few days later, Kyle reached out to me. I wasn't sure how he'd gotten my new number, but there it was, his name flashing on my screen. I didn't answer, but after a few missed calls, he sent a message. "We need to talk. You're being childish." I couldn't help but laugh. If only he knew what I was actually up to. But instead of responding directly, I texted back, "I'm busy." For the first time in years, I felt in control. I wasn't just reacting to their treatment of me, I was making them react to me. The real kicker came a week later when Kyle, in all his smug glory, posted a picture of the whole family at a dinner. There they were, all sitting together, laughing like nothing had changed. They were all posing for the camera, wearing smiles that didn't reach their eyes. It was the kind of photo you see on social media, where everything looks perfect, but you can tell something is off. I stared at the picture for a while, a strange sense of calm washing over me. They'd already made their move. Now it was my turn. The next day, I set up a meeting with a local lawyer, someone I knew through a friend. I didn't need to make a legal case just yet, but I was preparing myself for the long game. It was clear to me now that I wasn't just going to sit back and let them forget about me. I needed leverage. I needed to make sure they knew they couldn't just erase me from the family. 2 weeks later, the Christmas incident was still fresh, but I wasn't done. I arranged a family dinner, one I'd host myself. It took a bit of planning, and I'd kept it low-key, but I invited everyone: Mom, Dad, Kyle, and even some extended family. At first, it felt weird to be the one reaching out, but I was playing a bigger game now. It wasn't about patching things up. No, it was about getting the last word. The night arrived, and when everyone gathered around the table, I could see the surprise in their eyes. Kyle was the first to speak up. "This is unexpected," he said, eyes narrowed. "What do you want?" I smiled, keeping my tone neutral. "Just thought we could have a decent meal together." The tension was palpable as we sat down, but I could feel the weight of the situation on my shoulders. I wasn't sure what they expected, but I wasn't backing down. I was finally the one in control. But then, after we had started eating, and the awkward silence filled the room, something unexpected happened. Kyle stood up and raised his glass. "To family," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. I knew this was the moment to strike. It was time for them to see the true cost of what they had done. "I think you've had enough," I said calmly, raising my own glass. Kyle looked confused, and so did my parents. "What are you talking about?" he asked. "You wanted to vote me out," I said, slowly, carefully. "Well, I'm making my own decisions now." I stood up, and for the first time in a long time, I felt the power shift in my favor. Kyle's smirk faltered as I looked directly at him. The vote was clear, right? I'm no longer part of the family, I said, my voice cold. The silence that followed was deafening. But I wasn't finished yet. I had one last thing to say, one final move. And that's when the doorbell rang. The doorbell echoed through the silence of the room, sharp and sudden. Everyone froze for a moment, eyes darting between each other as if trying to figure out what was going on. I hadn't planned for anyone else to show up. My gaze shifted to Kyle, whose smirk had evaporated entirely. His face, once filled with confidence, was now one of utter confusion and uncertainty. I walked over to the door slowly, enjoying the sense of control I hadn't felt in so long. As I opened it, the face that greeted me wasn't a relative or friend, but someone I hadn't expected. It was my lawyer. For a split second, there was a collective gasp. My parents' faces shifted from confusion to anger, but they didn't say anything. I could see the wheels turning in their heads, trying to figure out what was happening. Kyle, ever the first to speak, finally managed to get a word out. "Who is this?" I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I stepped aside to let the lawyer into the room, giving him a subtle nod. He stepped in, holding a briefcase, his expression calm and professional. He didn't waste time with pleasantries, just walking straight to the table and looking at my parents. "Good evening," he said, his voice clear and authoritative. "I'm here on behalf of Jason. I believe you may remember him." My father's face reddened, but it was Kyle who spoke up first, trying to mask his discomfort with sarcasm. "I don't know what this is about, but if you think we're just going to—" "Actually," the lawyer interrupted, cutting him off smoothly, "I'm here to serve you all with this." He handed my mother a thick envelope. She hesitated, staring at it as if it might bite her, before reluctantly accepting it. My father sat up straighter in his chair, tension radiating from every fiber of his being. He must have known what was coming. It was the look of someone who realized they were about to lose control. "What's going on?" my mom finally asked, her voice trembling. "I'm simply here to ensure that everyone is on the same page," the lawyer said calmly. "This is a legal notice. As of today, Jason has filed formal documentation to terminate his connection with your family's estate and any future claims or entitlements associated with it." The room went quiet. The atmosphere shifted like a thunderstorm had rolled in, the weight of everything that had happened sinking in. I could feel the tension building, an almost suffocating pressure in the air. They were all staring at me, the shock evident on their faces. "You're kidding," Kyle said, voice strained as he tried to hide the panic creeping into his tone. "You can't do this." "Actually, I can," the lawyer said smoothly, his eyes never leaving my family. "This is just the beginning. You see, there are some other documents in this envelope that pertain to other family matters. But the main point is clear. Jason has made his decision, and I'm here to ensure that everyone involved understands the legal ramifications." My mother was the first to open the envelope, her hands shaking. She skimmed over the paperwork, her face paling with every line she read. The others were trying to hide their growing panic, but it was obvious they were starting to realize just how serious I was. You can't just cut us out of your life like this," my father said, his voice growing softer, more pleading. He finally stood up from the table and took a step toward me, but I held my ground. The years of neglect and control had built up, and I wasn't about to back down. "I'm not cutting you out, Dad," I said slowly, my voice steady. "I'm just making sure you know that I won't be treated like nothing anymore. I won't let you and Kyle manipulate me or treat me like I'm disposable. The vote you had, it doesn't count. I've made my decision. I'm out. And I'm making sure you can't do anything about it." Kyle clenched his fists. "You're being dramatic. This is ridiculous." But even as he spoke, I saw the fear in his eyes. He wasn't used to being the one on the other side of the table, to seeing the power shift away from him. "No," I said, my voice firm, "this is reality. You wanted to vote me out, remember? You thought I'd just roll over and take it. But no, I'm taking control now. I'm done being the punchline in your jokes, the scapegoat for everything that goes wrong. I've got a life to live, and it's not with you." The lawyer turned to leave, his business completed. But before he could exit, my mother finally spoke up, her voice shaky but louder now. "What do you want from us? Why now? Why do this to us? Why?" I repeated, almost laughing at the absurdity of it. "Because for years, you treated me like I didn't matter. You thought I would always be here to pick up the pieces when things went wrong. But that's not how this works. You want me to be part of your family? You want to pretend like nothing happened? Fine. But there's a cost. You don't get to toss me aside and then expect me to come crawling back." I paused, letting my words sink in. Kyle, now visibly uncomfortable, shifted in his seat, clearly losing his nerve. I've moved on, I added quietly. And I'm not going to beg for a place at your table anymore. The room fell silent. The tension was almost unbearable. My parents were staring at me as if they couldn't recognize their own child. Kyle's face was a mixture of disbelief and frustration, his eyes darting around as if looking for a way out. I stood there, my body tense, but my heart strangely calm. I wasn't the person they had tried to force into submission anymore. I had done it. I had made the decision. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid to stand up for myself. I turned to the lawyer, nodding toward the door. "Thanks for coming," I said. He gave a short nod in return and exited, leaving the weight of the moment behind him. And with that, the silence became overwhelming. My parents looked defeated, Kyle was seething, and the rest of the family, who had been quietly observing from the edges of the room, shifted uncomfortably, unsure of what to say. I took a deep breath. This wasn't the end, but it was a turning point. The ball was in their court now. The question was whether they would finally realize the consequences of their actions or continue down the same path. As I stood there, looking at them, I knew that I had taken the first real step toward my freedom. But the story wasn't over yet. The real question was what would happen next. Would they accept it? Or would they try to pull me back into their toxic web? I couldn't wait to find out. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. My parents stared at the documents as if they could somehow will them out of existence. Kyle's face was twisted with disbelief, like he was trying to figure out how the power had slipped from his hands. The rest of the family, those who had gone along with the joke, who had laughed as they voted me out, shifted uncomfortably in their seats, suddenly unsure where they stood. Then, my mother did what she always did when she felt cornered. She tried to manipulate me. "Honey," she said softly, folding her hands together as if she was the victim here. "Let's not be hasty. We're family. You can't just walk away from us over a joke." I let out a breath of laughter. "A joke?" I repeated, shaking my head. "That's funny, Mom, because it didn't feel like a joke. It felt like the moment you all finally said out loud what you'd been thinking for years, that I don't belong here." "That's not true," she insisted, but there was no conviction in her voice. "You don't get to decide that anymore," I said, cutting through her weak protest. "For years, I've let you all treat me like an outsider in my own family. I let Kyle walk all over me. I let Dad ignore me unless he needed something. And I let you guilt-trip me into staying, even when I knew I deserved better. But that ends today." Kyle scoffed, rolling his eyes. "So what? You're just going to cut off your family forever? Over this?" His voice dripped with condescension, but I could see the cracks forming in his bravado. He wasn't in control anymore, and he hated it. I met his gaze head-on. "Yes," I said simply. "That's exactly what I'm doing." My father, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "You think you can just erase us? Family is family. You'll come crawling back one day." He said it like a fact, like it was inevitable. But he didn't know me at all. I took a deep breath, letting their words bounce off me. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the final confirmation that I was making the right choice. "I won't," I said, my voice steady. "You made sure of that. You all decided I wasn't part of this family before I ever made this decision. I'm just making it official." I turned toward the door, feeling lighter than I had in years. My lawyer had already left, but he had done his part. The paperwork was filed, and soon, I would be legally free from any financial or familial obligations to them. No inheritance ties, no legal claims. Nothing. Kyle, realizing that I was serious, stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair. "You're a coward," he spat. "You think you're better than us? You'll fail on your own. You'll come crawling back, begging for help." I turned back, looking him dead in the eye. "If cutting out toxicity makes me a coward, then fine," I said. "But at least I'm free. Enjoy your little kingdom, Kyle. I hope it was worth losing a brother." With that, I walked out the door. I didn't look back. The weeks that followed were eerily quiet. At first, my parents tried to call, then text, then send emails, each message shifting between fake concern and outright anger. I ignored every single one. Kyle, predictably, tried a different tactic. He sent messages taunting me, trying to get a rise out of me. I didn't respond. Then the messages stopped altogether. A month later, I heard through a mutual friend that Kyle was struggling. Without me around to take the blame for everything, the cracks in the family dynamic were starting to show. My parents had started putting pressure on him instead, expecting him to pick up the slack now that I was gone. It turned out that being the golden child wasn't so golden when there was no scapegoat left. As for me, I moved forward. I got an apartment in a new city, started focusing on my own life, and surrounded myself with people who actually cared about me. And for the first time in my life, I was truly happy. Because I wasn't just free from them. I was free.